Welcome to Math with Mr. J. In this video, I'm going to cover how to add fractions with unlike denominators, and this is part 2. So if you need part 1, that link is down in the description. If you're ready for part 2, let's jump into number 1, where we have 3/7 plus 5/14. And the first thing that we need to do is find a common denominator. Now, like I mentioned in part 1, you may recognize what that common denominator is right when you see the problem. But if not, you can always write out your lists of multiples in order to find it. So let's write out some multiples of both 7 and 14 and see if we have any common multiples, specifically the least common multiple. So we'll start with 7. So 7, 14, 21, 28. Let's do 14. So 14 here, and the first multiple of 14 is 14, and we have a common multiple, specifically the least common multiple. So 14 is going to be our common denominator. Let's go back up to our original problem and rename both of these fractions with that common denominator of 14. We'll start with 3/7. So we need to find an equivalent fraction to 3/7 with a denominator of 14. So think, how do we get 7 to equal 14? Well, we know 7 times 2 is 14. And in order to keep this equivalent, whatever we do to the denominator, we do to the numerator. So let's multiply the numerator by 2 as well. 3 times 2 is 6. Now we do 5/14. Well, 5/14 already has a denominator of 14, so we don't need to rename, so we can bring that 5 down. Now we're ready to add, so add the numerators. 6 plus 5 is 11. Keep our denominator the same, so 11/14 is our final answer. Look to see if we can simplify. 11/14 is in simplest form. The only common factor between 11 and 14 is 1, so we are done. Let's try another one and move on to number 2, where we have 2/8 plus 6/12. First thing that we need to do, find a common denominator. So let's write out our multiples for 8 and 12. We'll start with 8. So 8, 16, 24, 32. Let's do 12 now. 12, 24, and it looks like we have a common multiple, a least common multiple of 24. So 24 is going to be our common denominator. Let's rename these fractions with that common denominator. And we'll start with 2/8. So let's think, how do we get 8 to equal 24? 8 times what equals 24? Well, 8 times 3 is 24. So we need to do the same thing to the numerator in order to keep this equivalent. So 2 times 3 equals 6. So 6/24 is equivalent to 2/8. Now let's do 6/12. Well, we know 12 times 2 is 24. Let's do that same thing to the numerator to keep this equivalent. 6 times 2 is 12. So now we have our renamed fractions with that common denominator of 24. So we can add. 6 plus 12 is 18. Keep the denominator of 24 in our answer. So we get 18/24. Now that is the correct answer, but it can be simplified. We can break that down into its lowest terms. So we need to look for common factors between 18 and 24. There are multiple paths in order to get to the simplified answer here, but if you pick the greatest common factor between 18 and 24, you can do it in one step. So the greatest common factor between 18 and 24 is 6. So let's divide both by 6 in order to get the simplified answer. So 18 divided by 6 and 24 divided by 6. 18 divided by 6 is 3, and 24 divided by 6 is 4. So 3/4 is the simplified answer. But I do want to make this clear. 18/24 is the correct answer, but we simplified to 3/4. If you need a little more help or clarification on simplifying, I added a link to my video on simplifying fractions down in the description. So there you have it. There's how you add fractions with unlike denominators. I hope that helped. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, peace.